Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your host, Steve and Jeff. Steve-O, today we're going to be talking about weird and wonderful diets.
Yes, extreme diets, yeah.
Extreme diets.
Yeah.
Now, we've done some work on diets before, and I always find this fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's funny, a lot of people go, don't diet. You just, dieting is terrible and bad, and you should just eat, and make that into your lifestyle. And I understand where they're coming from. At the same time, though, doing short spurts of certain types of eating, I don't think is necessarily bad. I mean, I think when people talk about stop dieting, I think they're typically talking about yo-yo dieting and, doing flipping and flopping from one thing to the next and what have you. Now, in terms of diets are concerned, I've done 12-week diets before where, I've stuck to a certain eating plan. I've done ketogenic-based diets, and that's probably the one that I referred to if I was going to stick to a select eating plan for a period of time to achieve something. Yeah. Doesn't mean I'm going to eat like that for the rest of my life, no. But we've been having a lot of conversations about different types of diets, and I'm very interested in the benefits of a certain type of diet that we're actually going to be talking about today.
Yes.
And I've even asked you to do a little bit more research into certain extreme parts of these diets, which is around fasting.
Fasting, yeah. I've got graphs too.
But Steve, we want to talk about the Metasaurus diet.
Metasaurus, I've got that.
What's it called?
Carnivorous diet.
Carnivorous diet. And we've mentioned it before, but we've really never delved into it. Now, Joe Rogan has come out famously recently and talked about the benefits of the carnivore diet. And for a lot of us that don't know what that is, you immediately go, well, that can't be good for you because you're not getting your fiber, you're not getting your vitamins. Surely you're leaving a lot of stuff on the table, but there may be more to that than meets the eye.
True.
So we can talk about that. Steve, what other diets are we going to talk about?
Well, we can talk about a vegan diet, or what I found an extreme version of that was just a fruit and vegetable diet.
Now, Steve Jobs famously was a fruitarian for a period of time. Have you seen that? So for a period of time, he only ate fruit. In fact, if you watch the Steve Jobs movie, which I love with Ashton Kutcher, now apparently it's not as accurate as it could be, and there's some criticism and all the rest of it, but it's still a kind of a cool film, But in the famous scene there where he's raising capital, and he's across the table from the investor, the mum gives him some sandwiches and gives Steve a bowl of grapes, I think, a fruit. And he goes, he's a fruitarian. So it's kind of fun, which is an extreme kind of a diet. And there is a guy on YouTube that I see kicking around who's an endurance athlete who is a fruitarian as well too.
Really?
And that does fascinate me. Yeah. What other extreme diets?
Ketogenic diet. I've called that an extreme diet.
And we have spent a lot of time talking about the ketogenic diet, Steve. So we've got some new information to bring there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Updated info.
Very new and not more than just weight loss. One. Got some other stuff on there.
And again, because we talk about ketones for the brain.
Yep, and I won't give it away for our listeners, but I'm going to talk about that.
So we're going to talk about the... we're going to talk about a disorder, but we'll leave that to the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very interesting information on that disorder.
So what other diets?
We've also been talking about, and I've called this a extreme diet, a low-fat diet. Remember how that was big in the 80s?
My word. And I think that's been put to the sword now.
It has, but it's an extreme diet that's still kicking around.
It's still kicking around?
Still kicking around. Still published in the literature where they're comparing it. We're going to talk about that.
How on earth could people, and this is the thing that amazes me in today's society when you've got access to a lot of information, how people could actually go, I'm going to go for the low-fat diet.
Well, because I can justify it to you incorrectly. You ready for it? It's less
cholesterol.
Calories. Yep.
Okay.
You don't eat much cholesterol at all.
Right.
You eat more fiber.
Sure.
You eat less fat, therefore less fat goes on your body. I know this is how I'm justifying it incorrectly.
Sure.
And that's how it's sold to people. And you've got to remember, there's people who aren't doing what I'm doing and you're doing, and we look at all the literature. They're just going, I'm just going to eat less calories. Okay. And that's it. And there's some famous people online that say that if you eat less calories, you lose weight, and that's true to an extent. Sure. But what we're going to talk about is that if it's that simple, why hasn't the average punter just said, I'm just going to eat a bit less? And obesity rates are, 2/3 of Australians are obese. Yet everybody knows that you should eat less and eat better.
The more that we understand about the body as well too is that everything is connected and there's always the piper to pay. For example, on some diets, including fasting diets, you have to be mindful of your thyroid because your thyroid hormone starts to go down. There's the thing about metabolic stall. Yeah. There's ways of tricking your body to be burning optimal amounts of calories, timing of eating, autophagy. Yeah. We're talking about eating offal Yeah. We're talking about all these sorts of things that are sometimes missed in the broad strokes when people talk about certain diets. So some of these are extreme. Some of these are interesting. One of these diets I'm going to be doing, Steve.
Oh, which one?
Well,
no, I think I know. But anyway,
I mean, I like Joe Rogan, so is it the carnivore diet? I don't know. But I mean, and again, I'm not saying that one size fits all. Like I love a ketogenic diet, and I've said to you before that when Tony does it, she doesn't respond to it, right? Yeah. So you've got to know your body. I mean, there could be certain handbrakes and things that you haven't considered. Blindly pushing through, sometimes that's what you need, especially if you're got a relatively low patience.
Yep.
And you're just like, no, I'm not feeling good. I'm not doing it. But there are hacks. There are things that you can do. Yeah. And I'll come back to things like bone broth, black coffee, other things that you can do on diets that can give you a significant enhancement to help you stay on track. Because, and personal trainers love this saying, trust the plan. If you're going to do something, set some goals, set some milestones that you're going to stay on track for X period of time, and you are going to push through.
I know, and there's another one that I found interesting. It's called the Whole30 diet.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's
all right.
It's just for 30 days.
So, all right, Steve, where do you want to start?
Oh, look, we can start off with why people are going into these diets, and I read about that too.
Okay.
And that's simply they've failed the usual rules of exercising more and eating less.
Well, one of the things that I like about any system, Steve, whether it's, jazzercise, water aerobics, I don't know, Pritikin diet. I mean, I'm trying to think of the worst things I can think of here.
Pritikin diet,
yeah. I mean, and that killed people. But
I didn't even include that because it's not relevant anymore. But we can mention it.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before as well too. Horrible diet. Steve, just really quickly, what's the Pritikin diet? Just
very quickly, low fat diet.
Yep.
And that'll solve all your ills.
Yeah, right. So terrible. Yeah. But and those are probably on the extreme, but there's probably, and this people try and work out what is the perfect diet, what is the perfect way of eating, what is the perfect exercise, and look, you might, if you spend years working out for you the sort of the optimal diet, and there are suboptimal things, but you're still going to get results on suboptimal so long as they're not dangerous for your health. So this is trusting the plan. Once you decide to do something, just spend the time and just give it a crack and see what happens.
And so when I was in practice and I was seeing people for losing weight, which is a lot of people, they'd already tried the usual things of just eating less, and they can't control themselves. So part of this topic today, and part of the theme you're going through this, is we've got to regulate people's appetite.
Well, let me ask you this, Steve, really quickly. Satiety.
Yeah.
What we say. Now, one of the best ways, and this is why I liked the ketogenic diet, is because I consumed a lot of fats, like from avocados and nuts particularly, right? But what about gut bugs? What about certain gut bugs that just scream and I need sugar. I need whatever it may be. You have cravings for things. Now, with people that have got a lower willpower succumb.
Yeah, they do.
But so therefore, following a diet where and this is knowing yourself, maybe don't go for a really strict VLCD calories type diet. Maybe incorporate a diet that focuses on helping you with satiety around things like fiber and fat.
Yeah, exactly. And people like Robert Atkins, a cardiologist, came out with a like a ketogenic diet, very low carbohydrate, but he said, don't eat when you're hungry and eat until you're full.
Yep.
And it was and that was a very popular diet. Now, is that an extreme diet? We can talk about it as an extreme diet. I don't think it's very extreme. I don't think just saying, hey, just have vegetables and fruits and salads, low sugar ones, and then just eat just until you're full of quality proteins and fats. I don't see that as being an issue. The issue with he had was that he didn't discourage animal fats. And that was the big no-no back then when he brought out the book.
So what, omegas from things like salmon?
Yeah, that was fine. And how much do you eat? You don't count it. You just eat until you're full.
Yep.
Simple. So, that's got its pluses. And then people might say, oh, that's negative. But you've got to meet people halfway. And you've got to get people to actually follow the diet. Now, if people have tried cutting calories and they starve and they blah, 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 the Atkins diet may be best for them, or the ketogenic diet. which is similar. The ketogenic diet restricts proteins a bit more because proteins can turn into carbohydrates.
Sure, through glyconeogenesis, absolutely. Mind you, it is a difficult process.
It's very difficult.
It's labour intensive, if you like.
But in my opinion, all of these diets are better than the ultimate alternative we did a podcast on about a month ago.
Which was which?
The a drug, semaglutide.
Ozempic. Yeah, I'm mentioning the drug. It's controversial, and it's everywhere at the moment.
Yeah.
Steve-O.
Yeah.
We were talking just briefly about this yesterday. We broke our own rules. You remember? I said, because I'm not going to remember some of the stuff. But I said, this is something that we did a podcast on Ozempic, which is, Ozempic
is the brand name, but it's
I call it Ozempic.
Is the drug.
Semaglutide.
Yeah.
And they had the Kardashians. There was a whole heap of people talking about it. So do you want to just throw cast back onto that? Because, I mean, look, supplementation, using things that it can enhance lipolysis, things like caffeine are well known, L-carnitine are well known, burning mitochondria in the cell, burning fat in the mitochondria. Green tea, capsaicin, these things can all help.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if it's got to come down to burning more calories than what you consume, right?
Correct.
But not all calories are created equal. That's why we don't say if it fits your macros. We say make it fit your macros all the time.
Yeah.
Because there's a healthier way to do things, right? Yeah. But what about this this drug, Steve?
Semaglutide, all it does is a hormone in your gut called GLP-1. And what that does is it causes you to feel full. Okay? So this drug just increases that. So it's usually given to people with diabetics so they don't eat as much, so their blood sugar levels drop down. Okay, that's possible. But now people are taking it even if they haven't got diabetes, so it suppresses their appetite to the point where they don't feel like eating and they lose weight.
Did you see the stars coming out in support or against it?
Yeah.
Did you have a look at that?
Yeah, I did. It's scary.
It is.
Because people who promote this don't know the side effects of this drug.
Yeah.
Like the side effects of eating healthy is good for you. The side effects of this drug, as we talked about in our podcast, is up to and including cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not
sarcopenia, Steve. Severe loss of muscle tissue, which stalls the metabolism. Anyway, guys, if you're considering that drug, we highly recommend to go and listen to the podcast that we did on that. All right.
Don't take new drugs unless you speak to your doctor about it.
100%. And look, there's a lot of...
Pretty much out of stock in Australia at the moment. Can you believe that?
I can. Yeah, because people are looking for a shortcut.
Yeah.
So, Steve-O, without further ado...
All right.
What are we going to talk about? Which of these extreme diets do you want to start with?
It's good. What about the ketogenic diet? Because that's probably the most, and we did focus a bit this on weight loss. That was sort of the brief we talked about.
So tell me some of the new information, Steve, or the points that you want to get across, because we have mentioned it before. And very, very quickly, again, in brief, just to recap.
Sure.
And I do like the ketogenic diet. I'll disclose that up front.
Yeah, I like it.
But what?
Ketogenic diet is a diet that produces your body own ketones.
Yeah.
Ketones means you're burning fat. So it's as simple as that. It's a fat loss diet, not a weight loss diet.
Sure.
It focuses on burning fat.
Yep.
So that's what the ketogenic diet is.
And what are you eating typically? What's your ratio of proteins, fats, carbohydrates?
Sure. Carbohydrates about 5 to 10%.
Yep.
So very, very low.
Yep. And typically you're getting them from things like, salads. And vegetables, that sort of stuff. And you're trying to avoid really starchy, high sugar.
Potatoes and
corn and that sort of stuff, right? Yes. Yep.
So you're having a lot of green leafy vegetables.
Yep.
Capsicums, those sorts of things.
Sure. Capsicum's quite high sugars, isn't it?
Not if you have the green ones.
Okay. But the red ones are higher, right?
Red ones are higher.
I don't want to split hairs, but you're right, Steve.
Yeah. So water-based fruits and vegetables, so a lot of those green. Now, you can have some fruits like tomatoes and avocados.
Sure.
So there's
typically the non-sweet ones.
Non-sweet ones, so no mangoes or bananas.
Yeah.
And you can argue they're healthy, but that's not the ketogenic diet.
And by the way, I will say if you are going to eat a banana, go for a really green, starchy banana because they're actually good for your gut. And very low in sugars. Yeah. Whereas you get those really ripe ones that you make your banana cake from, they're going all spotted. Yeah. Sugar content's through the roof.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay.
And if you want to do the ketogenic diet, it's basically very low carbohydrate, moderate to low protein.
Yeah.
And a lot of people miscue that as a ketogenic diet is a high protein. It's not. It's just enough to get you by. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the calories, which is 70-80%, or probably 70%, is fat.
Sure.
Healthy fats.
Yeah.
Medium chain triglycerides, omega-3 oils, plant-based oils, all these sorts of oils. So it's a very high fat diet.
Yeah.
Healthy animal fats, like salmon and even grass-fed red meat. So it's a very high fat diet. Now, what the reason for that is, of course, if you restrict carbohydrates, your body will burn more fat. It's like a seesaw sort of thing.
Yep. And you also massive hormonal control as well too, specifically around insulin.
Really good. So insulin levels drop dramatically, which usually improves the health of people with like PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. A ketogenic diet is very indicated for those sort of people because it's very, very good for their insulin control.
So insulin, when produced, Steve, does what in the body?
It stimulates it puts on fat.
Sure.
So
How?
It gets sugar and puts it into cells.
Yep.
So when the sugar goes in, you can't burn fat.
Yep.
It's like a switch.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And the easiest way for people who are interested in fat loss, I mean, if you're trying to build muscle tissue, there's actually an argument why you may want to have a high carbohydrate meal after a workout. So. Yeah. But if you're specifically focused on losing body fat, as soon as your body has an insulin response, fat loss stops pretty much completely.
Absolutely. Because your body can't really store sugars, and sugars in the blood are dangerous.
Sure.
Sugars have to be kept in a very narrow range from about 3 to about 6.
Sure.
In fact, if you wake up and your blood sugar levels are above 6, you've probably got diabetes.
So the only place that your body can store carbohydrates is in the muscles and in the liver. And that's typically stored as glycogen.
Glycogen, correct.
Yep. But the amount's relatively small.
Relatively small. You run out pretty quick.
Okay.
Which is good.
So that's the basis of the keto diet. So, Steve, what new learnings have you got on the keto diet for us today?
Okay, so weight loss is great. But what I found here was a really interesting study. And now, unfortunately, it's in rats, but you'll see why it's in rats. There is a behavioural model in rats that they've developed now where you can basically give the rat autism. Right. Okay? It's an autism model in rats. And what they did was they said, okay, they gave these rats autism, okay? And what they did was they fed them a ketogenic diet. And what happened is that they found dramatic improvements in their autism. In fact, it ameliorated their autism.
Right.
Now, again, is this a human study? No. Is this something interesting? Yes. So what we do know about the ketogenic diet, it's very good for the brain.
Yes.
Ketones are extraordinarily beneficial for the brain. And I've got and in fact, that's where it started in the 1920s for epilepsy. So about 100 years ago, they used the ketogenic diet for what they termed refractory epilepsy. Mm-hmm. So kids were put on a ketogenic diet, very good for their brain. Lots of studies on that.
Okay.
So very good for your brain. And so what this, and also this diet also increased, guess what, in the gut? Akkermansia.
Really?
Look at that. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
do they know how?
Oh, yeah, because it restricted the carbohydrates in the diet, which carbohydrates, when it gets to the large intestine, are very bad because it stimulates the growth of anaerobes.
Yeah.
Because anaerobe, you can metabolize carbohydrate anaerobically into lactic acid, etc. Mm-hmm. So with those anaerobes, they're usually bad in the gut microbiome. So you get rid of those, and the other good species are allowed to take over.
Now, what's interesting about Akkermansia is that I consider it to be one of the holy grails in terms of weight loss, energy systems in the body. It's found typically in the guts of athletes who do a lot of high intensity, typically endurance-based training. My understanding is that Akkermansia, and the expression of Akkermansia, Steve, how would you best describe what it does?
A spending gut bug is what I call it. So it helps give your metabolism a boost.
Yeah.
So it's a spending one. It gives you more energy and that sort of thing. Helps you metabolize energy better.
And it's fed in the gut by carbon. It actually feeds on carbon particularly. Yeah. So again, if you've been for a run and you get that build up, especially if you're at school and you get that in the back of your throat, you get that carbon sort of mucus. Yeah. It loves that. That's what it feeds on. Now, not everybody has Akkermansia, though, in their gut, though, Steve. So if you don't have any Akkermansia in your gut, that might not actually help you, correct?
Correct. So the ketogenic diet is quite good for the gut. And it also reversed the increase in lactobacillus species.
Okay, and lactobacillus does what?
An absorption thing. So it's not bad, but it absorbs calories out of your food. Now,
great for babies.
Great for babies.
Yeah, and if you're underweight or you're trying to put on more tissue. Lactobacillus typically found in things like yogurts and that.
Very much so.
So again, that could be beneficial, and it produces more of what we call the firmicute, or it is a firmicute.
It is a firmicute.
So again, your bacteroidetes and your firmicutes. Now, most people in the West, especially if you consider yourself to be overweight or you're looking to drop, you might want to help to balance out the firmicutes and the bacteroidetes. If you've got too many bacteroidetes, effectively you're working uphill. But if you change your foods, you might be able to balance the gut, which then helps you to burn more calories
and that's
crave different types of foods as well.
Absolutely, and that's what this does. So, that was a paper. I'll just tell you, it's actually yet to be published. So it's a very modern paper.
Ahead of publishing.
It's going to be published in the Experimental Neurology Journal in August 2023.
Wow,
I got an advance.
So this was obviously focusing more on the kinogenic effect and the effects on people with ADHD.
Well, rats with the model
rates,
but
to discuss that as part of a discussion.
It's a good model. And what I did was I found another paper on humans in a British Journal of Psychiatry, 2023, and it's titled, and this will give it away what it is, Efficacy of Low Carbohydrate and Ketogenic Diets in Treating Mood and Anxiety Disorders, a Systemic Review and Implications for Clinical Practice.
Okay. So how did it affect mood?
Well, it increased ketones, beta-hydroxybutyrate.
Yeah. So ketones in the brain, Steve, does what? I mean, I know it's great brain fuel because we can use sugars, glucose in the brain. Yeah. And the brain uses a crap ton of energy, like a lot, right?
About 20% of your daily intake is just for your brain.
Just for brain function.
Brain stuff, yeah.
But if you can switch the fuel from being carbohydrates, which is creating insulin, which is creating blood glucose, some spillover could potentially store in body fat as well too.
Correct.
But I had a colleague that I used to work with who always used to reach for a sugary drink in the afternoon because he said he started feeling flat, fatigued. Maybe some people are reaching for a biscuit, but it definitely bumps brain activity, definitely helps support cognitive function.
Yeah.
But what does ketones do? Is it superior? Is it, I mean, I'm not just talking about in terms of, obviously ketones is going to probably be better for the body in terms of not storing carbohydrates as fats. And you're not getting those calories in through sugar. Yeah. But what about the actual fuel itself, Steve?
The fuel itself is a steady base fuel, which means it's superior. So, you know, your friend who has a sugary thing in the afternoon, blood sugar levels go up, and then what happens?
Crashes
down.
Feels tired. So needs to have a little sleep, a little kip he wants.
Yeah.
So and oftentimes he would kind of after the lunchtime meal, about 2:30, 3 o'clock, sort of starting to feel a bit flat, reach for a sugary drink, and then depending on how sugary it is, and if he's consuming proteins or anything else like that, maybe another hour later probably starts feeling tired again. I'd imagine.
Of course, because what goes now ketones are released; they're made from your body, so your brain can survive on ketones, no problem at all. In fact, there's no such thing. You've heard of essential fat, You've heard of essential amino acid. There's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Body can make it. Now, in your brain, it can feed off glucose, and everyone says, "Oh, well, that's good then." But sugar levels don't just stay steady all day, every day, because we eat lots of sugary things and carbohydrates, and blood sugar goes up and blood sugar goes down.
Yep.
So this is a better fuel for your brain. And what this study found was when they put these people with anxiety and depression, it actually dramatically improved their symptoms of anxiety and depression.
How?
Well, it stabilised the brain chemicals. So beta-hydroxybutyrate is also anti-inflammatory. So you get rid of inflammation out of the brain. So it's very good for that.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you've got inflammation in the brain, you get your tryptophan, the amino acid, and it turns into quinolinic acid, which is like, what's that? Who cares? It's not serotonin.
Is that the tryptophan steal?
Yeah, the tryptophan steal.
Right.
Kynurenine pathway.
Right. So you can help, and people don't know what this is. And again, we've spoken about it a long time, a while ago. But tryptophan steal effectively forces the tryptophan down the wrong pathway. Which instead of helping with serotonin and good mood and positive vibes that are associated with that. What does that do through what pathway is that, Steve, that you said that it goes down to?
The kynurenine pathway.
Kynurenine.
Yeah.
And what does that do? What's the offshoot of that do?
The offshoot of that is you don't make any vitamin B3 in the brain.
Right.
And you don't make you obviously don't make serotonin.
Wow.
Now serotonin is, for those who don't know, is a very important brain chemical.
Yeah.
Very important gut chemical too, which is why the ketogenic diet also resolves gut issues too.
It's all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected.
So therefore, literally, you can, with this ketogenic diet, you're not going to have the tryptophan steal.
Yep.
Or it can help to address that.
Yeah.
You're going to get more serotonin.
Yep.
You're going to be more positive outlook. You're going to have an elevated mood, less anxiety.
Yeah.
Wow.
So very good. And it stabilises the chemicals in your brain. So you feel better in your brain. And this is where epilepsy is destabilising of the brain. We'll keep it very simple. The ketogenic diet in the 1920s was shown to benefit the kids with this. So kids can go on this diet too, under supervision, absolutely. So, we know that and you can see a nice graph here, we can put it up on the screen, that the more carbohydrates you eat here, and I'll just show Jeff this, and you can explain this, the more mood disorders there are.
Right. So
it's a direct correlation.
Direct correlation. Yeah. The higher that the carbohydrates are, the more issues that you're effectively facing in the brain.
And you go into a ketogenic diet at the bottom here, and there's virtually none.
Yeah. Okay. We'll definitely put that up online, but there definitely is a correlation there.
That one. So definitely correlation, and we now know the biochemistry. But not only that, this diet was tested on other neurological conditions, and it was extremely beneficial for many of them, including things like migraines.
Yeah, right.
Very good for migraines. About 18% of women get migraines.
Is that because of inflammation?
Inflammation, and also it antagonises calcitonin gene-related peptide.
Right.
Which is a peptide in your brain.
Well, that sounds like calcium.
It does.
Right.
But calcitonin is the thing that gets calcium into cells.
Right.
So when you get too much calcium into your brain cells, they overactivate and it releases the histamine and inflammation. So calcitonin gene-related peptide is an enemy of migraine sufferers. In fact, the latest drugs like Emgality, which is what's it called? I should tell you the chemical name. Galcanezumab, that's it. And what that does is that just simply binds up calcitonin gene-related peptide and stops you getting migraines. So if you get rid of that chemical, which is what the ketogenic diet does, it should stop that chemical going down and you stop migraines. Drugs like rizatriptan, it's common names here, that blocks calcitonin gene-related peptide and ameliorates migraines within 30 minutes, usually if you're reactive to it. So it's good.
So that diet is conducive, obviously, to having the same sort of effects.
Absolutely it is. So, there's many studies on the brain here, and most of these studies in this review talked about anxiety. But what I loved about it is it helped within 14 days. You know what I mean? So really good. Wow. Do you know how much it reduced depression in the bigger of the studies here?
Wow. The big D.
The big D, big depression.
Yeah.
Fewer episodes of depression, and it reduced it by 41.2%.
Do you know that we have an absolute epidemic that's going on at the moment? I mean, obviously there's been a global upheaval at the moment, over the last few years, and there's been lots of sadness, lots of stuff going on.
It's incredibly sad.
But this epidemic seems to be getting significantly worse, Steve. So this could be a tool to help combat that.
Well, it is a tool. I mean, as I said, this was one of the studies in this particular paper I talked about before, but there's many studies on the brain. And I just picked depression because it's so common out there, and migraines because it is so common out there. So I mean, amazing for your brain.
Yeah.
So, when you have like a high carbohydrate diet, that's very bad for your brain, very bad for your blood sugar level. So let's say you're eating a lot of carbohydrates and you're on one of those low-fat, high carbohydrate diets, which I didn't even include in this because they're just not applicable anymore, in my opinion.
Sure.
Then you're going to have higher blood sugar levels because you're eating more carbohydrates. Carbohydrates turn into sugar. Sugar damages tissues in the body, nervous tissue, kidneys, eyes, these sorts of things, because nerves can't regulate how much sugar goes in there. Like your blood-brain barrier, if you eat a lot of sugar, it will get straight to your brain. Like your friend who drinks his Coke, it'll be high sugar in the brain. High sugar sticks to proteins, and that forms advanced glycosylated end products, which basically age your brain. AGE.
Wow.
Very bad for your brain having a lot of sugar. So the opposite end of the ketogenic diet, the high carbohydrate, low fat, is not only bad for weight loss because it doesn't maintain muscle mass, it's very bad for your brain and kidneys and eyes and these sorts of things because it's just a terrible diet, which is still around.
Sounds almost pro-oxidant, Steve.
It is pro-oxidant. Advanced glycosylated end products, when they become active, they're called RAGEs, or radical advanced glycosylated end products. So they become free radicals.
Yeah, right.
So blood sugar is in fact, diabetics, have you heard of diabetic neuropathy?
Yes.
Diabetic nephropathy, and you get blindness from diabetes. That's high blood sugar levels.
And amputations, obviously.
Well, the blood vessels become damaged too.
Yeah.
So you can't get circulation down to your feet, and they just lop your feet off. It's not, diabetes is a terrible disease. The ketogenic diet is extremely beneficial for type 2 diabetics, which is the most common form of diabetes.
Well, I think we've made a pretty strong case then based on the ketogenic diet. And I know we spent a lot of time talking about it, Steve, but the benefits, I think, are probably more than what we can talk about just in a single podcast, right? But that's interesting on the brain, definitely.
Brain, yeah.
Right.
That's very interesting.
So that's a foundation for me and something I like.
Yep.
Can we move to maybe one of the more extreme
let's go.
diets and have a look? What else have we got to talk about today?
Well, all right. I'll give you a title of this one. We can talk about this. This is published in Cell Metabolism 2020. It says effects of 4-hour and 6-hour time-restricted feeding on weight and cardio health on a randomized control trials in adults with obesity.
Yeah, look,
I know you love this one.
Well, I am. I'm very interested in terms of fasting diets.
Yes.
Now, I said to Steve as well too, and I've been doing a bit of research, and I've been sort of playing around with this a little bit as far as the benefits. There is absolutely, and we're talking about everything from 12-hour fasts.
Yep.
And again, if we look at nature as well too, we should be, and we used to in the agrarian society and as far back when Moses was a boy and all the rest of it, is that typically you would wake up with the sun and then you would normally go to bed not long after the sun goes down. You would typically eat during that period and then you would fast pretty much after your evening meal. You know, there was no Netflix on back then. You know, there wasn't a heck of a lot to do.
No.
So it was, you know, pretty much we're going to bed, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to go to the extreme end. So this paper is when you only eat for 4 hours or only eat for 6 hours.
This is called the 4 hours, I believe, is called the warrior diet.
Warrior diet, yeah.
And so the different types of fasting, and I just want to run through them really quickly, and we're going to break down a couple of them.
Yeah.
And the benefits, not just from fat loss, because most people focus on that, but there is a lot of observed benefits that you might want to consider. So the 12-hour fast.
Yep.
Then there's the 16-8. And there could be other ones as well too, but I'm going to talk about it. 16-8 seems to be incredibly popular.
Yeah.
So again, that's fasting for 16 hours and eating for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So you might fast until, midday and then eat your meals or eat your food normally, and this amount of calories that you get, and this is one of the tricks, you've got to make sure that you don't restrict your calories to a point where you're under eating so that your metabolism stalls up until 8 o'clock at night, and then nothing again until 12 o'clock the next day. Now, then there's 18-6, which seems to have more benefits for fat loss over the 16-8, but again, Steve, we can break into that. Then there's a complete 24 or even a 36-hour fast. There's even up to a 3-day fast.
Yeah.
Then there's ADF, which is alternative day fasting, where you fast one day and then eat normally the next. And then there are combinations as well too, where there's free eating days. You can put flexitarian in there. You could potentially put in ketogenic-based dieting on top of that as well too.
Yes, that's true.
You can combine these things. And some people have done a lot of research and study into combining fasting diets with eating certain foods at certain times. One of the big ones on fasting that I've heard, Steve, is that when you're breaking the fast, even on a 16-8, that you should lead with protein and absolutely stay away from carbohydrates and even fats for that first meal, just in terms of gearing the body up to start processing food again. And the longer you stay on the diet, the absolutely should lead with protein and not lead especially with simple sugars and carbohydrates off the bat. But that's a lot to take in, Steve.
It is.
So where do you want to go?
All right, well, I'll start off with intermittent fasting, eating by the clock for health and exercise performance. That's in the British Medical Journal. And what they did was they reviewed all the different types, or a lot of them. Yeah. The 16-8 diet and all this sort of stuff. And what they found was it basically improved your health dramatically. Yes, you lost weight.
Yep. And body fat?
Body fat, okay. Yep. I'll tell you how much.
Because weight is weight, right?
Yeah,
but we've got to make sure that that it's fat weight. Because, you can lose a lot of glycogen. You can even dehydrate yourself, and you can fool yourself into thinking that you're actually doing a good thing. Yeah. But if your metabolism stalls, and the benefits that you get after 1 to 2 weeks could significantly end up putting the handbrake on, which is what you don't want.
And there's some amazing findings out of this study. It said, and I'll quote this one, exercise in the fasted state led to shown to increase fat metabolism without impacting resting energy or expenditure when compared with diets with the continuous calorie intake throughout the day. So if you exercise while you're fasting, while you're on these fasts, you will burn more fat.
And I think this is this fasted cardio that a lot of people tapped into and was very, very popular, a few years back. And I think a lot of people still do. Now, listening to people who are, I said do, I know, but listening to people who are advocates of the fasting, whether it's a alternative day or whether it's a mixed, which is what I like, by the way. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. I like a mixed view of fasting. Sure. So 1 to 2 days a week a complete fast, maybe 1 or 2 days a week where you're doing an 18-6, then eating normally on the weekend, or I should say over a normal period of time, so that your body never gets used to a certain aspect. It also, I believe, won't hamper the thyroid like some of these diets can do. But again,
problems with this
I have pieced this together, Steve, without actually creating the empirical evidence to suggest my belief. It's just listening and sort of understanding what people are doing. But that's a big one, though. I think in terms of exercising while fasted, whether it be weight gain, whether it be sprint which we think sprint training is the best way to lose weight, which you should only do 3 times a week, by the way.
Yeah.
But you should be absolutely, if you are going to fast, don't sit on the couch.
No.
Absolutely. There is a benefit from keeping the body going, the lymphatic system, not slowing down your metabolism.
Yeah.
If you stop eating, there is a chance that your body might slip into a hibernation mode where it starts going, oh, there's no food, oh, we're not moving, let's just slow everything down because we might be in a famine. But if you keep exercising, if you keep, obviously water up and you keep moving, your body is less likely to put the handbrake on your own metabolic rate.
100% correct. You've got to keep exercising. There's no ifs or buts about any of these programs. You always should exercise. And I was going to say that because we'll get emails, but you should just exercise. Yeah, well,
you should anyway.
Yeah.
Regardless, even if you're freaking eating McDonald's every day, you should. And in fact, even the more reason for you to exercise. I mean, I love Tim Ferriss. When he was doing his diets and all the rest of it, after he'd eat a meal, especially if the meal had carbohydrates, do you know what he'd do?
What?
He'd go into the toilets and he would do squats. And I forget how many he would do. He'd just do body weight squats. Oh. He would do slow and steady because he said in terms of GLUT4, in terms of glycogen, in terms of storing things, you want to activate your muscles. Now, what are the largest muscles you can activate? Your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads. How easy can you do that? I mean, if you're trying to do your chest, one is small, but you have to get down on the toilet floor and do push-ups.
Well, mine's massive if you're...
Steve, it's like a baboon's bum, really. I mean, Steve comes out, it's like, holy cow, and that thing is impressive.
Baboon's bum.
But if you go into the toilet and look, people are making strange sounds in there anyway.
Yeah,
but you could be doing like squats and slow, steady squats. I mean, if you do...
Going, in the toilet, it wouldn't sound strange.
No, it wouldn't. But if you do 10, like cadence, and again, not slowing or stopping at the bottom, and Ken Ware's taught us this, right, is that you just keep moving, right? So no top, no beginning, no end, just keep it going, slow and steady. It does activate those muscles, and that's going to help with the transportation of any of those nutrients into your cells.
Absolutely. A couple of side effects with this, beneficial ones for time-restricted eating, was that they improved an immune response.
Yes.
How much? I didn't know that. Yeah. I that surprised me out of this.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting one. And they did study a lot of people who are on Ramadan, which is a strict fasting during the day.
Yes.
And eating at night.
Once the sun goes down.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And they weren't allowed to eat. As soon as the sun came up, they weren't allowed to eat, correct?
Yep. And with those people, and they were usually soccer players, they fasted exercise are well tolerated, so they were fine to exercise and did not increase the incidence of injury. So it didn't have any adverse effects on them, improved. It also reduced their inflammation in the body, which I found, interesting again. So it's very interesting.
It is. So we'll have a look at that. I think in terms of the immune system as well too, the other thing that we haven't spoken about, and I know this does occur with longer fasts, immune system's great, autophagy. Yeah. Steve, can you just talk about autophagy, what it is?
It's when the body can basically clean up all the crap cells in the body that accumulate from damage, free radicals. Because with not eating, what we know about not eating as much, even whichever way we do it, is that it increases the lifespan of most animals. And we don't know about humans yet, but it's likely to.
We always talk about Linus Pauling, right?
Yeah.
Like, he the godfather of vitamin C, I think, right?
Was, yeah.
I mean, he was off there, but he used to have a quite a calorie restricted diet. Yeah. My understanding was about 1,200 calories a day or something,
which is very low. Usually 2,500 is what an adult male would have, 2,000 for a female. But he would have a calorie restricted diet, and the theory was that we are overeating as human beings, because when we were sitting in our caves, we didn't eat like we do now. We've got food everywhere. I've got a drink here on tap, and you can but back then there were no fridges in the caves. So we didn't have to just have food on tap. So we've sort of used to eating foods in intermittent fasting anyway. I mean, if you went out and didn't catch an animal that day, or couldn't get any fruit for whatever reason, or there's a big storm coming, you'd fast that day. Mm-hmm. We'd call it fasting. They'd call it starving.
Yeah.
But it was a very natural cycle of life.
Well, and actually, that's really important phrasing, Steve, that we talk about as well too. The terminology of "I'm starving" is so overused in the West. It's not funny because realistically, what it means is that we're hungry. Now, we are such a comfort society now that we have got to a point where any form of discomfort is designed to be weed it out of our existence as much as possible. I mean, I remember, and I'll give you some extreme examples here. My mum never went to the dentist when she was younger because my grandmother used to say, the dentist will hurt you. I'm not kidding.
Oh, well, they kind of do sometimes.
Yeah, but
let's be honest.
But it's good hurt. Going to the gym is good hurt.
That's good
and
hurt.
I think a lot of people have cottoned onto that now. No pain, no gain. Yeah. It's the same thing with regards to hunger and food. I mean, again, we've laughed about the bodybuilders that wake themselves up at 3 o'clock in the morning, or people taking casein protein before bed because God forbid for one moment that there's not amino acids flooding into the system because you're going to be sacrificing gains.
Yeah.
But what they haven't taken into consideration is the impact on the endocrine system, specifically growth hormone production as well too. The benefits of not eating. When you're not building, you're repairing. And this is what, and you can build and repair at the same time, because people go, hang on a minute, if I'm repairing my muscle. Yeah, but you're building new muscle fiber. Whereas if your body actually has some downtime, this is when you're sick, you don't want to eat. Your body instinctively knows, no, I need a period of time when my body, instead of focusing on processing and breaking down amino acids and turning things into glyconeogenesis and, whatever it is, that I can actually just focus on dealing with whatever issue I'm dealing with, whether it be viral or what have you. But also, if your body's in a relatively good state, it can repair broken DNA.
Of course it can.
This is the thing in terms of anti-aging. I think one of the things that as the West, specifically in the last 30, 40 years, that we don't do is that we're not ever told to fast. We're not ever told to have a period where you don't eat for a day, a couple of days. I've done a 3-day fast before.
Yep.
Very unusual. I mean, I was not prepared for it. So the same thing, though, is that with the ancient wisdoms, there are net benefits for the body that we never actually understood.
Yeah.
And this is where I think fasting and this whole thing around, I'm starving. If people can have breakfast and then go, oh, I've had a late lunch, I'm starving, right? You're not actually starving. You're not starving. I mean, if we were going to get to it, we look at people in Africa, Ethiopia back in those days. And we remember the 40-hour famines that we used to do in solidarity with people to raise money, right? That's just so that we could have a taste of what those people go through.
And you wouldn't starve 40 hours.
Even 3 days, you're not starving. You're putting yourself into a calorie deficit for sure, and you can definitely empathize. I mean, I can empathize. I mean, but that's a control issue, not a lack of availability issue. Right?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, and you might be able to answer this better than me. But when I was a young boy, I was quote starving at 5 o'clock because dinner was going to be 20 minutes away.
I know.
Here's a packet of twisties or something, because I wasn't, quote, starved to death.
Yeah.
But I used to do that all the time. It was incredible, the thought pattern because, young, you don't know, and you're definitely not starving.
No.
But you think you are.
No, that's right.
People have, you ever watch this, like Naked and Afraid show where people go out in the bush for 21 days and they basically don't eat for 21 days, down odd cricket or whatever.
Oh, geez.
And so they are really, getting towards starving.
Sure.
But that's 21 days.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's a long time. So.
Well, the thing is as well too is I think that again, there's got to be a piper to pay.
Yeah.
There's got to be some discomfort to get a benefit. We're talking about the gym, resistance training. We understand that now. Exercise, sprint-based cardio, it's not fun. I mean, it becomes fun once you actually get the endorphin rush, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine about doing squats. He hated them when he first started doing them. Then as he improved and he started getting better, he stared looking forward to leg day, right? So you can retrain yourself in terms of certain things. But food, and we are gorging ourselves to starvation of vital nutrients and components, right? So, and this is part of the problem as well too, where I feel that people probably can't go as long without food because they're not eating as many healthy fats as they should. They're not eating not calorie dense, but vitamin and nutrient dense foods anymore. We're eating so much, plastic rubbish. We're eating so much stuff that's got no nutrients in it. It's basically literally carbohydrates and sugars, and maybe a little bit of protein, a little bit of fats, and then a whole heap of preservatives and weird chemicals that, but anyway, this is so far away from where we should be eating as a diet. So when we hear some of these extreme diets, if you went back 100 years and I know we've got better knowledge now, but they would have a look at what we're eating, they'd laugh.
They'd laugh at us.
I mean, if you look at some of the petrochemicals that we have on things like yellow covered, cheese snacks. I'm not going to mention any brands.
No. Yeah, I know the
but
ones.
like some of them are literally from petrochemicals.
Yeah.
And we're eating these things.
I used to eat a large packet of those things for breakfast on my way to work. And I was a chemist. I used to eat 100 grams of that. And that was because I'd wake up so early, get the train, blah, blah, blah. And because I didn't have this, I didn't think of health because I was 18.
And you had ankylosing spondylitis.
Yeah, I got that.
Now, correlation. You would probably now say causation, Steve.
Yeah, well, the studies now show it's causing it. We know the bad gut causes ankylosing spondylitis. There's no question of that anymore.
Yeah.
But this study that we were talking about fasting, where they just gave these people, you either ate from 3 to 7 p.m. or 1 to 7 p.m. So they eat for 4 hours or 6 hours.
Yep.
And it was an amazing study. And you actually put me onto this because you said that 2 hours makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And you're right.
Well, Steve, I am so glad that I know you. And I'm so glad that you're good at studying because there was some anecdotal evidence. And I'm like, I really want to know.
All right.
16.8 and 18.6. Is that 2 hours? How big is that improvement in terms of effects on the body?
Well, I'll just go to fat loss.
Okay. Well, that was the major one that I'd heard.
Now I'll show you the graph and then we'll talk through it. This was the fat loss graph. That is the 4-hour eating group.
Oof.
And that's the 6-hour eating group.
Okay.
And they basically ate similar calories. Here's the weird thing.
Wow.
So can you see a difference there?
So, okay, based on the control group,
no.
there was no decrease in percentage in kilos.
No,
right?
they ate the same diet as everyone. They didn't change their diet.
With regards to the 6-hour, where they were, say it was a 6-hour feeding time.
From 1 till 7 p.m.
Yep, so that's the 18.6.
Well, that's...
I mean, that is an 18 fast, 6 eating time.
Correct.
Okay. There was significant over control, but you're looking at probably somewhere around about the 1 kilo, Steve, would you say? 1 kilo loss. So this is across the group.
And that was fat loss.
Yep.
Too.
As opposed to the 18
or 20
or 24. So that's more the warrior.
Yeah.
So this hasn't got the 18.6 in here. But anyway, this is interesting.
The 18.6 is the first one.
18.6 and then
you got a 24.
Oh, and then a 24. So this is warrior diet. So same amount of calories. You're looking at about 3 kilos. Yeah. So you're looking at 300% increase. So you've got an infinity increase in the 18.6, and then the 24. So 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of feeding. You have a 300% increase in fat burning over the 18.6.
Isn't that incredible?
That's way bigger than I thought.
Well, so
it's not twice as good. It's 3 times as good.
Yeah, because there's something about it and they said they only dropped their calories throughout the day. They both ate, compared to the control, 550 calories less. And it had that amazing difference. So there's something in the metabolism and all that sort of stuff that gives you a difference.
So let me just go through this really quickly as well too. This warrior diet sounds like hardcore. And by the way, I'm going to get some tricks in here because I might do this one, right?
I might do this. Diet podcast.
It is. And I mean, it doesn't mean you should eat this way every single day. Now, if you can, great. But I think there will be diminishing returns after time. And this is something else, Steve. This is something, and again, I don't know how long this was done for, so maybe you can tell me.
It'll be in the methodology at the front of the page, but that's all right. We can talk about
8 weeks.
There you go.
8 weeks. Okay. So fat mass, massive. So control group effectively is pretty much on the line all the way through here. Insulin actually goes up in the control group, but it's pretty much on the baseline, 0 change, right? If anything, if there's any changes, it's actually slightly negative.
Yeah.
Okay. So lean mass, the 18.6 group lost more muscle tissue than the 24 did.
I'm glad you picked that up. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Which shows to me overall, if you maintain more of your lean muscle tissue by doing the warrior diet, right, crazy, like 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating, but you must maintain the same amount of calories. That's really, really important. Yeah. So this is even where I'd use a calorie counter to make sure. So effectively, you're probably going to feel like you're going for it during that 4-hour period.
Oh, yeah.
But I reckon it's because, I mean, you're keeping more muscle tissue, which means that over the longer time, you're going to lose significantly more body fat as well too, because your muscles obviously are active. They're burning calories.
There's something I looked at that and I thought, you know what, if you were a hunter and gatherer and you're out there and you got a kangaroo, Australia, and you killed it, you may eat for about 4 hours. and that'd be it. That may be your daily consumption, and you may have some berries with that or whatever you've foraged. But that's what a successful hunting and gathering group would do, and that's what it seems like the body seems to be okay with that.
But this is why I also like the what's the one thing on a 20? So if you're going to fast for 20 hours and then only eat for 4, what would be your last meal before you go into your fast?
Oh, it'd be a nice fatty steak.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I
mean, I know that you might feel like, and at the beginning as well too, as your gut bugs are craving sugar, you might go, I want a bowl of ice cream or something like that, which would work against you. But if you had a salmon steak with some avocado and lots of I would fill up on proteins, fats, and fiber. Yeah. That's what I'd be going for and then I'd go to bed, right? Because then you'd get the longest amount of, or I guess you could do it first thing in the morning, and then maybe that might be better.
Well,
to actually eat in the morning
3 till 7. So that was just that study, or 1 till 7.
I don't know.
PM.
Anyway, that's interesting. So visceral fat, significantly we're going to call it the warrior diet, which is 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating versus the 18-6.
Yeah.
Visceral fat was better. Fasting glucose was better. And again, forget about control group. Both were better. Fasting insulin was about the same. Insulin resistance was about the same. Heart rate was slightly improved. The LDL cholesterol was slightly better on the 18-6.
Wasn't significant.
And triglycerides were slightly improved on the warrior diet, but probably not really that significant. But certainly fat mass was significantly better, as was lean mass and visceral fat.
Nice, isn't it?
It's brilliant.
It's, because when you spoke to me about that, and it's like, can you do this for 8 weeks? It's an extreme diet, but
sure,
your body's going to love you for it.
There's some certain things that I'd probably take into consideration as well too, such as supporting thyroid. So things for me that I would be taking on that would be, iodine for sure, and I'd even be making sure you get like sea salt and that sort of stuff. I would definitely be having fish and stuff like that as well too.
Yep. A really, really interesting diet. So I just thought that's an extreme diet. I call it extreme because if you're only eating for 4 hours, but isn't that like if you're a busy person and you are very busy, if you could only eat from 3 to 7.
I'm a very important person, Steve.
Yeah, of course, but if you just ate for 4 hours a day, wouldn't that be much more convenient too?
Tony loves it. She's been doing some of these fasts, and she says, and it's funny, there's a guy that we listen to, Alex, and I'm not going to pronounce his last name because I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try, actually, because otherwise people go, who's this? Alex Hormozi? I forget.
Right.
He's an entrepreneur in the States. Brilliant guy. Set up his own gym, had a system. He now has a company which he invests into other companies. And he was talking about fasting, and he loves it because effectively, and when he first started, and I'm going to get into some of the hacks and tricks and supplements potentially that you could use, I think that would enhance this effect, is he would use bone broth. And Tony, and we did that. So the first day that we did this fast, 1, you're not having to prepare food.
No.
2, you're not having to stop. Okay, now I've got to go out and get food, or I've got to make and prepare my food and all the rest of it. You just go, I'm not eating, and you push it to your side. What Tony did, and this is one of his tricks, and actually one of the other guys that we listen to on fasting, and I forget his name, and he's got a big YouTube channel, and I highly recommend you go listen to him because most of the stuff I like what he's saying, is when you go for a 24-hour fast, or even if you're trying to break into this, use a little bit of bone broth with some chili.
Yeah.
It tastes amazing. Like, seriously, I was like, this is the best bone broth I've ever had in my life. Right? But it's improving your metabolic rate as well too. And it's a good way to sort of ease into it. Black coffee as well too is also not going to throw you out of your fast.
No, and they did have non-calorific drinks in that particular.
And guys, how we feel, nature knows best. We do not recommend artificially sweetened foods, even though you may be able to take them and they consider them to be okay. Yeah. What's interesting though, I did see a person talk about this, saying that with the sucralose, that it did knock them out of ketosis. So there is some suggestion there that could potentially interact. But non-nutritive sweeteners like stevia, I think, were shown to be very good. And didn't have any negative effect on your insulin and or on ketogenesis.
Correct.
So
very healthy for you. Now, I've got another study here. That this one covered 7 of the most common diets. We're not including fasting in these ones, but the 7 diets, they measured them for weight loss after 6 months and after 12 months.
Okay.
So, some of these are, I think some of them extreme.
But did they measure fat loss, Steve, or just weight?
They only did weight loss in this one.
I always
not
get a
great,
bit, no.
But that's like what they measured.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting, this one. This is why they measured Atkins diet, the DASH diet, which is the
DASH diet.
The DASH
is that
diet
where you ring up Dash to your door and they bring you food?
Yeah. It's a hypertension diet. So it's a government type low fat diet.
That's got to suck straight away. You mentioned government, I go suck.
The worst. It was the worst before. So at Atkins, DASH, glycemic index diet, Mediterranean diet.
I like the Mediterranean.
Dean Ornish diet, the Paleolithic diet.
Okay, Paddy.
Dean Ornish is a doctor. He promoted the low fat diet.
Yeah,
yeah.
Kind of like the Pritikin diet sort of thing. Yeah.
And he's sort of backpedaled a bit on his
he's a doctor. What nutritional study has he done?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know either. I mean, he could be. He could have a PhD in nutrition, right? Yeah. I don't know, but
he did a famous diet years ago, but he combined it with exercise, and they found cardiovascular improvement. It's like, was it the diet or the exercise?
Well, that's right.
So we didn't know, but of the diets evaluated, there's only one that said you can eat as much as you want, which is the Atkins diet, as much fats and proteins as you want, just restrict carbohydrates.
Yep.
That was the best performing diet for weight loss after 6 and 12 months, was the Atkins diet.
Do you know why?
Yeah, I think I do, but why do you think?
Well, I mean, for me, I think satiety is a big part of it.
Yes.
I think the fact that there's no carbohydrates filling the bacteroidetes, which we have too much of, and it's remapping your gut. It's enhancing, the good bacteria in your gut. There's no insulin. I mean, straight away, that's just off the top of my head. Those are 3 things. So you're not over-consuming calories. You're not feeding the bad bacteria in your gut with sugars, which they love. You're and you're not creating insulin.
Correct. And I'll read the study. So it's titled The Effects of Popular Diets Without Specific Calorie Targets on Weight Loss Outcomes, a Systemic Review from Clinical Trials. And I'll read the conclusion just so everyone's on the same page. Of the diets evaluated, the 7 I mentioned, the Atkins diet showed the most evidence in producing clinically meaningful short-term, 6 months, and long-term, greater than 1 year weight loss. So Steve, that one was the best.
For those that are listening for the first time or who have forgotten, just quickly, the basis of the Atkins diet.
Sure.
Tell me what it is. And could we do a modified Atkins diet? Because there is one out there. Right? I know what I would do different, but you just tell us.
I'll tell you what the Atkins diet is. It's really
simple. And if you see me wincing, everyone, I've actually pulled the bicep tendon, which is flipping giving me a... Anyway. It's a bit of a weird one. You can't get these big guns if you don't try.
You got to
shut up, Matt.
Yeah. For those who are listening...
I'm
Jeff's
huge.
Got big muscles.
I am like a Greek Adonis, if you've seen that.
For those who are watching, sorry about the misleading information. The Atkins diet is a really simple one. Robert Atkins said you can eat as much protein, as much fats as you want, animal fats. It's all fine.
Just go for it. Don't worry about the ratios.
Don't count calories.
So all that you're doing effectively is you're not consuming carbohydrates.
Correct.
Up to about 20 grams a day.
20 grams a day. So you'll add some green leafy vegetables.
Yeah.
But he says don't count. Only eat when you're hungry. It's a real simple one to explain. Yep. And there's 4 phases, and eventually you just add more carbohydrates in until you get to phase 4, which is like still low carbohydrate, but not super low. You can have bread once a day or something. So there's 4 phases.
Anyway.
So and that was the best one. And what I liked about it is it says don't count calories. Don't just eat until you're hungry, until you're full. And those people perform the best. Isn't that amazing?
Yep. Do you know what? It's liberating. And look, I understand as well too, for people that are going to get onto stage, for people that are absolutely like, oh my gosh, and that's a barrier to entry for a lot of people, because a lot of people, they just don't want the hassle.
Yeah.
They don't want the hassle of measuring their food. They don't want the hassle of using a calculator. Now, I recommend it. I think it's good, especially, when you're using certain types of diets, to make sure that you're not under eating more than anything, to be honest, because I think that's where I fall into it, because I'm busy and all the rest of it as well too. Steve, what would you do different in the Atkins diet, knowing what we know?
Okay.
Because what sort of foods would he promote?
Yeah, that I wouldn't. Cheeses and dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, first thing I'd chop out. And secondly, I would chop out grain-fed beef.
Yeah.
I'd make that distinction. Because
too much omega-6s?
Well, not so much. Too much palmitic acids, which is a long-chain saturated fat.
Is that the same as arachidonic acid?
Arachidonic acid is what's formed from the prostaglandin of the 2 series.
Yeah.
After
it's very inflammatory, isn't it?
Very inflammatory. And this, I mean, you can get arachidonic acid supplements for
I know.
And so it's not. I
met a gentleman who was actually recommending them. Now, again, I'm not qualified to. I understand his methodology to a point, but I'm not smart enough to.
Inflammation is involved in healing. It's not all bad. It's just just too much of it's bad.
I don't really see them taking off anywhere, so I don't know if they were really. Anyway,
so I'd change that. I'd be a little more liberal on what carbohydrates you can eat, like vegetables and fruits, a little bit more. But essentially, I like the idea of just eating when you're hungry, eat until you're full, and don't overeat. And the study shows that the calories they ate was slightly more, but not like. If people's eyes light up when you can say eat as much as you want, and 3 steaks, please. You can't eat 3 steaks
unless you're literally going out for a bender or a binge. Typically, most people are like, "Well, I eat until I'm full, and then I eat again when I'm hungry."
Yeah, that's what he said.
If you're going out on a weekend for a week, that's a little bit different. But what I would do differently, and this is kind of what I did do, I didn't measure I just kept track of my protein because I was building muscle.
Yeah.
But I switched out bacon for nitrate-free bacon when I'd have it.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course, yeah.
And even back then, don't hate me for it, Steve, but I was having dairy. I'd have things like cream in my.
That's all right.
And I changed it up for coconut cream down the road. But I'd have a bit of cream. I'd eat lots of butter. So I was having dairy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I still don't think it's terrible. I don't drink cow's milk at all anymore. But because I think that's probably the worst of it. And you could probably shed some more light on it. But I would incorporate a lot more nuts, a lot more seeds, a lot more avocados as the foundation of my food, as well as obviously salmon, fish, oily fish. I'm not a huge fan of mullet.
Beck likes mullet.
Oh, what is wrong with Beck?
I don't know. She married
what's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? But she got a good taste in boyfriends, though. But what I would say though is
she got boyfriends, has she?
Sorry,
she's got a husband.
I had to break it there. But I think in terms of fatty foods and all that sort of stuff is really, really good. But trying to get good fats in as well too. Like olive oil.
Yeah,
we mentioned that as well too. Lots of oil. Focusing on things like apple cider vinegar into the diets as well too, because I think overall you're going to feel full. Fiber is really important. Making sure you're getting enough vitamins and minerals. And this is where I think seeds could help a lot with obviously the minerals and things like that. What I did is that every second weekend, and then it became every weekend, I'd have a day in the morning where I'd consume lots of fruit. So I'd start off with grapefruit and I wouldn't have any fats. And I'd just have fruits and protein on that day. Now, that's actually Dave Palumbo, sort of a modification of what Dave Palumbo would recommend, just to get those sorts of things in. But if you're consuming plenty of salad, plenty of leafy greens, and yes, I'd have broccoli and cauliflower, and I'd be mindful as well too. And I was in ketosis, so I was measuring my ketones, right? But I would have lots of broccoli and cauliflower and squash and that sort of stuff. I wouldn't have pumpkin or potatoes and what have you. And I felt great, and I got great results from doing it.
Oh, you would. The other thing I'd incorporate is maybe a little bit of fasting. So don't just wake up and first thing you do, eat, go for a walk and try and put off eating a little bit until you are really hungry, not just, pretend hungry, like, I haven't eaten for 12 hours. Oh, the clock says at 7 a.m. must be eating time. I would try and fast a little bit longer than what Robert Atkins would do.
Well, and this is what I'm actually looking at the moment, is combining these two things. And I think this is what they seem to show, is that I've seen people that have ADF, which is alternate day fasting, get unbelievable results. There's one girl that I was looking at lost 70 kilos in a year. She was quite a
70.
She was quite a. I think she was about 140 kilos, and she effectively halved her body weight, roughly. Don't remember exactly, and she ate whatever she wanted on those other days.
Right.
She would still maintain her calorie count though, so I think she was limiting herself to 2,000 calories a day.
Okay.
But she would Snickers. Ice cream. She didn't care, right?
And was she exercising?
She didn't at the beginning.
Right.
She did, though. She became, and this is the cool thing about it. Her journey started going, she tried all these diets, she tried going to the gym and all the rest of it. Nothing worked for her. This worked for her.
Yeah.
And she was really happy and she got good results and good on her, right?
Yep.
And this is the thing. It worked. She created a plan. Now, you have to be mindful. And again, we always recommend go and talk to your healthcare practitioner. You got to make sure with some of these diets as well too that you're not missing out on vital nutrients like vitamins and minerals specifically,
Sure.
And obviously good fats. Because again, Steve, we know what happens if you cut your fats down too low.
Oh, yeah.
But what I would probably say from everything that I've learned, and again, this may or may not suit, is combining a ketogenic based diet with intermittent fasting, where it's cyclical, not the same every time. One Monday might be a complete fast. Tuesday might be a normal day of eating, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wednesday might be warrior. Thursday might be warrior. Friday might be a 16-8 or a normal day of eating. And then Saturday could be a fast again or a warrior. And then Sunday could be no dieting, just eat whatever, but just maintain your calories.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, though, is that if you combine that potentially with something like a ketogenic-based diet or an Atkins modified, what I call modified Atkins diet, where you're not eating overly processed foods, but high fat foods, but trying to incorporate more of the good fats in from olive oil and avocados and nuts and seeds and that sort of stuff, it can actually be a really good way to eat.
I think it's great. I think that I like the fact that you change it up every day. I hope that compliance may be the only issue. People may not be able. You can probably follow it, but the average pundit out there may like the simplicity of the 140 kilogram woman who just didn't eat for one day.
It's
whatever works for you.
It is whatever works for you. And I think allowing yourself to work within a range. You don't have to, because what I find a lot of the time in 25 years of working in the industry and when I used to have a supplement store and be talking to people about nutrition and diets, which, again, we recommend you go talk to your nutritionist, your healthcare professional to get that sort of advice, is that if people set the bar too high and they break it, they give up.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. You want that flexitarian. You want that ability to be able to move within a band. And I think eating like that gives you that. And in fact, I'd almost recommend as well too, and again, this is borrowing from Bill Phillips' Body for Life, is maybe give yourself one day where you eat whatever you want. You can make better choices. A cheat day. Go out, have your ice cream, have that. But then the rest of the 6 days, do it. Now, what Bill argued, and I don't know if he knew this or if it was intuitive or for whatever reason, but he said, you want to take the handbrake off completely. If you're restricting calories too much, your body will go into a metabolic shutdown. And this is where I think varying your diet to keep, so it doesn't know what's going to happen effectively from day to day, but operating within okay, today I'm fasting. Like Monday for me is a good day to fast. Just don't eat anything at all. And then Tuesday might be, a 16-8. I've never done a 24. I've never done the warrior, but I'm actually keen to give it a try maybe a couple of days a week. 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating.
I'm going to try it.
I want to try it.
I've never tried it. I'm more of a...
I've got to work out the timing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, if you did that, if you did it all day fast, and then the next morning when you wake up, you go, right, I'm having eggs and bacon, nitrate free, of course, organic, and avocado. And then, so you eat from 8, and then what's that for? 12. Then you have another big meal with like salmon and just really pile it up. And then you don't eat again for another, 24 hours or something like that. You'd even do a day fast then where you don't then eat until lunchtime the next day and then go from 12 till 4. That could kind of do it, right? Because all of the fat and the protein and everything else gives you that feeling of satiety. You're fasting. It's food for thought.
It's food for thought.
But it's just giving people options to be able to potentially look at using. And look, there's a book called The Warrior Diet. I don't endorse it. I haven't read it, but I see it's a popular seller out there that might help you with some of the concepts. Looking at, again, good, healthy, high fat, good fat meals, nitrate free, eat fresh local where possible. Make sure you're getting enough leafy greens, Steve. I reckon that could be really, really good.
That's. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think that's and whatever works for you, I think is the other one. The other one that they talk about, just an honourable mention.
Oh, well, I do want to talk about Joe Rogan's carnivore diet. So before we go, but you keep going, Steve, and then we'll save Joe Rogan for last.
I've got a paper, and you're going to love the title of Joe Rogan's, but I'll read it later. It's a very interesting title.
Yeah.
The Whole30 diet is an interesting one where basically...
Oh, okay, this is the
30 days, yeah.
Okay.
It's basically, I like it in a way. It says, eat real food. Eat meat, seafood, eggs, vegetables, fruit, natural fats, herbs, spices, all the good stuff. But no, avoid for 30 days. No added sugar, real or artificial. And that includes, they just say no sugars, even stevia's in there. So none of that. Okay?
Okay.
No alcohol in any form. Okay?
Look, Steve, I've been looking into that.
Yep.
I definitely agree. Okay. I definitely agree. I think, and I hate to say it because I don't mind a brewed ginger beer or from time to time. The only alcohol that I can literally put my hand on my heart and say 1 glass a day or potentially a couple on the weekend that I would kind of say I think the net benefits are there is organic, non-preservative red wine.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. And no more than 2 glasses in any one sitting, which I know sounds a bit mean. But anyway, go on.
I think the key of this one is it's just for 30 days.
For sure.
No grains whatsoever.
Yep.
No legumes.
Okay.
Exceptions are green beans and most peas. No dairy.
Yep. Oh, Steve, did you write this diet?
Yeah. Well, it's not bad.
No, I'm thinking all this is a big tick for you, Steve.
Yeah, I just got off the internet. No exceptions.
Off his own website.
The only exceptions, clarified butter or ghee, so I'm happy with that. No carrageenan or sulfates, so that's no processed foods. Basically.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of sulfates, man.
No recreational baked goods, treats, or junk food with approved ingredients. So none of the banana breads or any of that sort of stuff. One of the weird stuff.
Yep.
And here's another one. No stepping on scale or taking measurements.
That's interesting. See, that's contradictory to what we had learned last podcast.
Correct.
Which is by literally having scales you become more mindful.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, fine. But this is for 30 days, as you say.
30 days.
So there's a couple of things I'd change there. But anyway. But for the most of it, I agree with that.
Oh, sure.
So, and what was the outcome of the people that follow this?
Good. A lot of them good. Because you've got to remember that most people eat like crap.
Yeah, they do.
And it's an American diet.
And this is this whole thing around, and I hate the saying because it's overused, but this whole mindfulness, being, and this is the thing about the scales, just being mindful, all of a sudden, I think challenges you to make better decisions as opposed to on the go, I'm just going to grab those biscuits and that cup of tea. It's like, because, you're hungry, you need something. It's like, actually, no, I'm going to go and make a protein shake and have a handful of nuts instead.
Whatever we've done up to this point in society hasn't worked. We're getting fatter. So the results show that we've got to do something different. So I've got a great review paper here on the carnivore diet.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know the carnivore diet, and it's very extreme, but Joe Rogan did it, I think, as a bit of a challenge, and he reckons he's in the best shape of his life. He recommends it. So, Steve, what is the carnivore diet?
All right, basically, as the name suggests, carnivore means animal only. So you're basically eating meat and other things all day, and I'll get to those other things in a sec. But the title of this review paper says, Can the Carnivore Diet Provide All Essential Nutrients? That's the name of the title review paper.
Yes.
So,
can it?
Yes, in a short. Now, when you look at...
Where do you get your fibre from if you're on a carnivore diet?
Well, do you need fibre? This is the question. The thing is that you can get all the essential, and I'll just read the key points from the paper. It says, all essential nutrients can be found in animal source foods. Some nutrients, but the basic premise is you need to eat offal.
100%.
Yeah, that's the, and if you look at the animal sources of the nutrients, most of them are things like, for example, riboflavin, niacin, B6, folate, iron, vitamin A, and mostly beef liver. Calcium is sourced. The richest source is Parmesan cheese. Potassium is round beef. So
you're allowed to eat Parmesan on this diet?
Yeah, it's an animal source.
Oh, so anything from animals. So eggs are fine. Yeah. Okay, well that changes. It's not carnivore then. An egg isn't meat. Because when I hear this diet, I'm like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything from animals.
That's what this paper did. But you can still get everything out of beef as long as you eat the whole animal.
Well, this is the thing with Ben Greenfield when we spoke to him. He nose to tail, right?
Yeah.
And what's really funny is, Steve, how many cultures do you know up until, the 1800s that ate nose to tail?
Well, probably the Inuits and that sort of stuff when they were desperate, in the middle of winter.
Yep.
Because they couldn't have plant food.
Well, when I was growing up, do you know what one of my favourite treats was when I was on the road?
Treat, yeah.
Yeah, steak and kidney pie.
God,
Tony wants to vomit and she even hears it, whereas for me, and I know this sounds really weird, but I didn't know any better, right? So I was a little kid and my grandfather came over one time and he made this dish for us to eat. And so he served it up and I'm like, I ate this and I was like, that is awesome, Granddad. And he came from Glasgow.
Yeah.
Do you know what it was?
Yeah, what? It wasn't intestine, was it? It was. Oh.
Yep. Haggis. Sheep's intestine with offal in the middle. I loved it. Now I don't think I could eat it because even the smell, I reckon, because I've become conditioned. Yeah. We have become so controlled. That's what I'm saying. We've become so led down a path that I don't think is actually good for us.
No. So I mean, you're right. And so this paper talks about, that you can do this.
Heart meat.
Yeah. Very high in CoQ10.
Yeah.
Lungs. Is good in vitamin C and everything too. So you can get all your nutrients from animal sources and beef.
Yeah.
So
what did the Liver King eat? I mean, obviously he ate liver, right? But I mean, that huge guy that was on steroids that got busted. I mean, obviously he is talking about the benefits of liver. Is that why he's called the Liver King? I don't even know.
Weird looking guy, but he very muscly and very so he
and big bearded.
Yeah. So I mean that's interesting. So there's something.
Okay. So in the carnivore diet, you can eat eggs, you can eat cheese, you can eat butter, you can eat,
and that's what they term as a carnivore diet.
Okay.
So but if you want to just eat beef, that's fine too.
So in terms of lots of different options there for people to look at.
But then there's vegan diets. They work too.
Oh, okay. Let's not leave the vegans out of it.
All right, just quickly. People survive on vegan-based diets as long as they get some B12.
Are vegans allowed to eat bugs? No.
No, well, not in this particular study.
No, because there's still a living,
still
creature.
Got a face.
Like, where do they draw the line with like a carrot's living? But it's not really. It's got a face. If it's got a face?
That's what Matt told me once.
Cast a shadow.
Cast a shadow.
I can see a carrot, yeah.
Broccoli cast shadow.
Even its leaves as it sticks out of the ground. I'm asking Matt. He's a vegetarian, which I will class those bastards the same. No, I'm kidding. But no, I think in terms of... They won't eat bugs, eh?
No.
Or eggs, no, because they come from and honey. They won't eat honey.
Yeah, so it depends on what you did. They studied groups in the Amazonian and they were mainly vegetarians.
In the Amazon? What?
Because they had so many plants around, they didn't get too many animals.
Wow.
Yeah, they only occasionally ate snakes.
The animals ate them.
Well, yeah, that's a point. Yeah, but even vegans, you can survive healthy as a vegan. The human body is very adaptable.
Well, as I said, the only thing we say that you need to watch out for is hydroxyproline.
Yeah,
B12.
We can make that in our own bodies if we have enough proline.
Right,
but that's depending on sort of amino acids and that sort of thing.
Vitamin C.
Vitamin C you get from all the vegetables, of course. That's plenty of.
But you do need that for hydroxyproline.
Yes. Convert proline to hydroxyproline. This one you need B12, which is the ones that they found was potentially deficient. But you can store B12 in the body, and you don't need much of it, microgram doses.
Yeah.
So if you can get it somehow with funguses and all this sort of stuff, they say that you can probably get by. But you know what I mean. It's good for. It can be done. It's certainly way better than the Western diet, which is...
Oh, for sure.
All these
I don't think there's any... I mean,
and
again, this the Western diet is killing everybody.
Yeah.
Let's face it. I mean, the standard American... there's a reason why they call it a SAD diet, right? Standard American diet. That's like an ATM machine. The SAD. Standard Australian diet, standard American diet.
They're the worst of all these ones we mentioned.
Terrible. People are dying. I mean, we're becoming more obese. We're having more, obese-related diseases.
Having
I wonder how long that's going to be before we're not allowed to say that anymore.
Obese?
Yeah.
Oh, is that offensive now?
Everything's offensive. Anyway, Steve-O, really, really good, really interesting. So hopefully, guys, that's given you something to consider. Have a look at the warrior diet. Have a look at the fasting. Yeah. I'm saying the Joe Rogan diet, but the diet that Joe Rogan has made famous is interesting as well too. There could definitely be some benefits, and I mean he's living proof of that, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, Dr. Jordan Peterson just eats nothing but beef and has for years.
Yeah, right.
He says it's boring and everything, but he's got terrible mental health issues that have resolved now because he's on a carnivore diet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because of all the amino acids.
So does that mean then that you don't eat vegetables?
He doesn't.
Wow.
And he's, quite cognizant and smart guy.
Oh, yeah, no one would refute that.
No. So he's doing very well. So there you go. Living proof.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll be back next week with some more.
See you next week.
Bye. All right, Steve-O.
Yes.
Australiana.
Yes. What have you got?
So I was listening to, Tony and I were, man, there's such rubbish on TV at the moment. Like, we are really struggling to find something to watch in terms of series, right? So we just watched Rabbit Hole. That actually wasn't too bad. That was quite interesting. But I loved the 24 series with Keith Sutherland.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. And he's got a new show called Rabbit Hole, which is kind of cool. Like, I just hate shows where you know what's going to happen before it gets there.
Because 24 was a massive show and it was huge.
Great. And also don't like shows with the message. So anything with the message, it's like you inevitably, you know that it's kind of going to come. It didn't with Rabbit Hole. There was no real message, which was kind of cool.
Like Maverick.
Which is kind of cool too, right? Just let us go off into fantasy land and let's not get bumbled over the head with whatever message they're selling. But there was a new. So my mum. So there's let me go back. There's a program on Netflix. I think it's Netflix. Might be Stan. One of them. It's just come out, and it's called 10-Pound Poms.
I saw the advertised.
Yeah.
Do we have to explain to people what a 10-pound pom is?
Well, my mum is a 10-pound pom.
Right.
And my grandfather were 10-pound poms. So 10-pound pom is I'm going to talk about the word pom because I didn't know where it came from. But if I say pom, what's a pom?
An English person.
That's right. So a 10-pound pom, is an English person. So the 10-pound was the fare that they would charge on a boat, which I think took around 4 to 6 weeks, I can't remember exactly, where they would come from the British Isles to Australia. Now, this happened between the years of 1945 up until, I believe, the late 70s. In fact, some people have even said into the mid-80s. There was a relocation program. There was 1 million people that came from England to Australia. A lot of them were put onto the snowy
hydro scheme,
which was, a modern engineering marvel for Australia. Helped us with our electricity and all the rest of it. Anyway, coming back to the word pom.
Yeah.
So, do you know why we call them poms?
No, I don't.
Any idea at all? Because I reckon, and this is something that I still use today, and we referred to them lovingly, so all you lovely English people out there, as whinging poms, right?
Yes, that's true.
It's like, how could you tell that a plane full of people had come from England?
Oh, we're in trouble with this? No, I don't know.
Because even after they turned the engines off, you could still hear the whining, right? So anyway, so they came over here. My mum bought out her poodle. It costs £60 to bring the poodle out. It was £10 for her, but £60 for the poodle.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, yeah. Anyway, so they came out here, but so POM is supposedly a bastardized acronym meaning Prisoner of Mother England. Now, I had heard that, but that is actually not true, or Prisoner of Her Majesty, right? But that's actually not true. Where it came from actually is from the word pomegranate.
Oh, my goodness, really?
Yep, because it was rhyming slang with, get this, what rhymes with pomegranate?
Can't think of a word.
Immigrant.
Really?
I'm not kidding. When I read this, I'm like, this is really, because you mean in England you go, grab the bone, which is the and it wasn't even that. It was like, grab the dog, right? It's dog and bone.
Dog and bone, yeah.
Phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the English were really good at this rhyming slang.
That was an Aussie thing.
Yeah, Australians have failed pretty miserably at this because, pom comes from pomegranate, which was particularly tenuous rhyming slang for immigrant.
Wow.
I know.
There you go. That's fascinating.
Anyway, so if and of course we call the Americans Yanks.
Yep. And septic tanks.
But originally, even before POMs, do you know what we used to call English people?
What?
So Australians haven't always called English POMs. Originally, they preferred a slightly derogatory term, which was Jimmy Grant. Now, I've never heard this.
Never heard of that.
Yep. Rhyming slang for immigrant.
Oh, really? No,
so that's closer than pomegranate.
Yeah.
Pomegranate. No, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it got shorted to Jimmy and English. So a lot of early English Australians would call them Jimmies.
Really?
It's Jimmy Grant.
Because Jimmy is an English name, real it's associated with England. You think of Jimmy. Wow.
Anyway, yeah.
Wow.
So references appear as early as 1844 when Australians were still British citizens. The country wasn't even known as Australia then. The colonies had been going for long enough at this stage. There was an identity divide. Some born in the colonies and others sailed from the other side of the world. And this is when they started using the sorts of slang terms and all the rest of it. So there you go. Anyway,
learn something new every day.
Anyway, enough of Australia.
All right.
On with the show.